Hello everyone, it's Rebecca from Chloe's Creative Cards, and today I'm going to show you how to make this lovely wintry pink Christmas card. Okay, so to get started, I have got a white 8x8 inch card blank, and I'm going to take a piece of rose quartz pearl card, and I'm going to take our largest scallop square die from the Scalloped and Pierced nesting dies, and I'm just going to tape that into position. And then I'm going to bring in my Gemini plate. So I've got my base plate, plastic shim. I'm going to put my die facing up with my cardstock, and then our top plate. And I'm just going to feed that through and wait for that to come out the other side. Just remove that from the die. So, pop that die away. Okay. And then we're going to stick that to our card blank using some Collal all-purpose glue. Like so. Stick that on there. Okay, I've then taken a square of crystal white pearl card. So I'm just going to grab some scrap paper because we're going to edge this with some Crystal Crush Sparkelicious. So I'm going to use my glue pen and I'm going to drag towards me on all four sides. Like so. And then I'm going to bring in my Crystal Crush Sparkelicious. And then we're just going to dunk that in all the way around. Like so. Okay, and then I'm going to bring my card back in. I'm going to pop that on with some foam pads. Just grab some of those. So. We'll just peel the backs off those. And then I'm going to stick that on. Just leave that little scalloped edge border. Okay, and then taking a piece of foiled paper from the Wonderland collection. And again, just some Collal glue on the back and stick that onto the card. Like so. Okay, I've then taken another piece of crystal white pearl card and I've just trimmed that down a little bit smaller so that we can still have a little bit of border of that lovely paper. Again, just bring in the scrap paper and I'm going to edge that with Crystal Crush. This is a very, very sparkly card, I have to say. But we all like a bit of pink and a bit of sparkle here. So again, just dunk that in all the way around. Then got a piece, I'm just going to pop that to the side because I've got a piece of rose quartz pearl card that's just slightly smaller again. And again, I'm going to edge that in Crystal Crush. Like so. So again, just dunking it in all the way around. And then we're just going to glue these two pieces together using some Collal all-purpose. Like so. And then I'm going to flip that over and pop some foam pads on the back of this piece. Like so. Peel off the backs of those. And then we're going to stick that into the centre of our card. Like so. Okay, I've then taken a piece of, you can't really see it at the moment, but if I peel a little bit back, I've taken a piece of pink striped paper, and this is from the Candy Cane Lane collection, and I've just added a double-sided adhesive sheet over the top. So I'm just going to leave that there for now, just so that you could see what paper that was. And then I'm going to take the Snowflake on the edge die, and I'm not using the outer dies, I'm just using the inner part. And we're going to cut that from some crystal white. So I'm just going to tape that to a piece of crystal white pearl card, like so. I'm going to bring in my plates again. This time I'm going to add in my metal shim, just because it's such a fine die. I'm going to add that into there. Pop that on and run that through my machine. So we're going to cut 2 of these. Like so. I'm just going to trim that off so that I can rotate that. And then I'm just going to run that through again. Sometimes you might have to adjust the pressure with your machine. Different machines are all kind of a little bit different. So some might need extra shims and things. Yeah, you can see that's all cut out beautifully. I'll just remove that from the die. I'll just peel that out. You can see we've got that beautiful image. Beautiful die cut. There we go. Put those little tiny pieces out. Okay, now we've got one. We're going to do this again. Just get rid of those bits. So I'm just going to carefully pop through these pieces that have been left in the die, just so that we can get a nice clean cut on our next image as well. And it definitely does make a difference. I know it can be a little bit of a pain to kind of pop out all of these extra pieces, but it does make a huge difference. Sometimes you can kind of tap them out. You just need to be careful with your die, obviously. So I'm just going to tap that, try and get out some of those other pieces. Right. There we go. I think we're about there. Okay. So again, I'm just going to cut a little piece of crystal white, pop that on there and run that through. Just wait for that to come out the other side. And then you can see that's cut beautifully. There we go. Oh. Just have to be really careful when removing this one because there's such fine points. Right, pop that to the side and just push through those little pieces. So there we go. Okay, right. So So we're going to bring in the piece with the self-adhesive sheet on, and we're just going to peel that back. So I'm going to peel that off completely, but I'm going to keep hold of this piece. I'll pop that last bit through. So then what we're going to do, right, so now this is all sticky. Okay, so I'm going to place one of the snowflakes towards the top corner, just gently tap that on, and again I'm going to put the other one towards the bottom. I'm going to use this piece just so that I can kind of make sure that that's secure, but without sort of taking any of the sticky off the paper or ripping anything. Okay, then we're going to flip that over, and I'm just going to trim off these excess bits. So just carefully trimming those bits off all the way around. Okay, and we'll just get rid of those. And then you can see how we've got that lovely background. So we're just going to bring in our Crystal Crush Sparkelicious again, and we're going to dunk it in. So nice and carefully. Max should really have a piece of paper under here, I think. So again, just carefully tipping it on and tipping it back off. And it's surprising how little you do actually use doing this. I know it looks like there's a lot going on, but when you look at my tub, you can see that there's literally hardly anything missing. But we've got that super lovely sparkly background. Okay, so we're going to add this onto our card now. So we're going to stick some foam pads on the back again. So just applying those to the back, just like we have done, and peel off those back ends again. We're going to stick that onto the card. Okay, we're going to start to create our ice skates now. So I'm going to bring in some rose quartz pearl card. So this is just the offcuts that we did from the scalloped edge. So I'm going to bring that in, and I'm just going to grab my ice skate die, and we're going to tape that into position. We're then going to run that through my Gemini machine. And wait for that to come out. Okay. So you need 2 of the ice skates for this card. I'm just going to show you with one today because I've already pre-done some as well. Okay, so we're just going to pop those little pieces through, like so. Okay, I'm then going to take my anti-static bag and just dust over the skate. And then I have chosen one of the designs that you get in with the skate, and I've chosen the snowflake one because we've done a lot of snowflakes in the background. And then I'm going to use my Wow Clear Embossing ink pad to ink that up. And then we're going to stamp that over the top. And this just adds a lovely pattern to the boot. Okay, I'm going to bring in some scrap paper again, and we're going to cover that in metallic silver sparkle. Like so. There we go. And then we're going to heat that up. what I've done to glitter it up is I've then used my Art Glitter Dries Clear Glue, and I've just gone along where the lace part is. I've just infilled all of that edge with some Dries Clear Glue, like so. And then I've just filled in kind of the top part of the blade of the skate and just along the foot. And then I'm going to cover that in Crystal Crush. Like so. And then for the bottom blade of the skate, I've just again infilled that with some Dries Clear Glue. Like so. And then I've taken Sleigh Bells Sparkelicious, and I would kind of leave it to dry in between just so you don't contaminate the colours, but if you do it very gently you can just about manage. Okay, and I'll just pop that one to the side to dry because I've already done two so that they're nice and dry. So I'll just grab those. And you can see we've got those lovely sparkly skates. So I've then just taken some of our self-adhesive sparkles and just kind of sparkled up the snowflakes on the boot. So you can just add those onto there. That one does not want to stay on. So just adding those sparkles to the snowflakes, wherever you'd like them, really. Like so. And then I've just taken some of the metallic ones and I've used the metallic silver, and I just kind of added a little blobs of glue along the laces just to make sure that they stuck over the holes, really. And then used these ones to cover over the holes. Again, you could lace these up as well though, that would look really nice. It's just a different way if you want something a little bit quicker. I think I might need some tweezers. There we go. Just get some tweezers. So it's a little bit fiddly. Like so. Go, and then the other one, again just adding a little bit of glue along there. And just grab some of the ones in. Oh. I'm just sort of using the medium size. Just applying those all the way along. Just get a little bit fiddly obviously with there being glue there as well, but just holds them nicely into position. Just with there being a hole underneath. Okay, so we've got our skates all kind of glittered up ready. We're then going to take the top part of the skate and we're going to die cut that twice from a piece of either crystal white card or white card, whatever you've got to hand, because we're going to cover this in fur anyway. So I'm just going to run that through my die cutting machine. So I'll just pop that in there. and run that through. Remove that one, and then we'll cut another one. While that's running through, I'm just going to grab some foam pads and I'm just going to put 2 little strips and stick one onto there, and then one is ready for when this one comes out. So I'll just remove that and then pop that strip on the back. So, and then I'm just going to add those to the top of the skates. Now you could just glitter that and that would look lovely as well. But we're going to add some fur today. So I've just cut a little piece of fur off my roll and I'm just going to again chop a little strip. Okay, I'm going to bring in a bit of scrap paper for this. It does get a little bit messy. So we're just going to kind of pull away all those pieces that weren't kind of bonded to that piece. And again, we're just going to sort of, and I just tend to judge it and think, right, that's still a little bit too big, so we'll cut a little bit more off. And I'm just going to kind of cut into the fur as well, just so it makes it kind of look a little bit messy and not too perfected. I'll just cut a little bit off the edge, cut away a little bit of that. Again, just sort of fluffing it out, and then that looks okay to me for that piece. So I'm just going to pop that onto the side. Again, I'm then just going to cut another strip, like so, and then pull away all of those pieces. Kind of just pulling it out, fluffing it up a little bit, cutting away a little bit of the webbing, the bonding that it's stuck to. Again, there we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna get rid of that. Okay, and then to stick this on, I'm just going to use some glue gel. So I'm just going to add a blob to the top of each skate, and we're just going to push that on to there. You can use dry clear glue, it works with both, but just obviously it's a little bit kind of quicker to grab with the collal, so that's fine. Okay, then we're going to create some circles to mount these onto on our card. So I've taken one of the scalloped circles and one of the pierced circles. And again, I've got some crystal white pearl card. So I'm just going to tape those into position onto there, like so. And then grab in my Gemini plates again and run that through. Remove those from the dies. And we're going to edge these with some Crystal Crush again. So I'm just going to bring in my chisel tip glue pen, and again all the way around the scallops. Oh, if you go off track, don't worry, you can kind of scrape it back. So we're just going to dunk that in. Nice and easy. Go, and then we're going to do the same with this one. So again, just spinning it round to edge it in a little bit of glue. Okay, and then we're going to stick these onto our cards. So I'm going to bring in some foam pads again. Stick those onto the back. Like so. And into the middle. And then some foam pads onto the scalloped one. And into the middle. And then I've got a little thin piece of ribbon. So we're going to use this to kind of hang our skates on. Okay, so I'm just going to pop some foam pads on the back of my skates. So for this one, I'm just going to add a single layer of foam pad. And just pop those pieces on there. And I'm going to kind of position this ribbon where I want it to go. So I'm going to have my skate from here. And then this is kind of going to come across like this. Let me get our other skate on. So I'm going to flip this over and again add some foam pads. But I'm going to add a double layer onto this one. So again, just cutting to size and just layering up those foam pads. Like so. I'm going to get my ribbon into the correct place where I would like it. And then stick my ice skate onto there. Okay, I've then tied a bow somewhere. Here it is. So I've tied a bow using some white organza ribbon, and I'm just going to use some 3D glue gel, and that's going to go and secure that top bit of ribbon as well. I'm then going to add a little sparkler, so one of the 10mm sparklers. And grab one of those from here. I'm going to add that into the centre of the bow. And then you see how that card's really starting to come together, so it just needs a little sentiment to finish it off. Obviously, if you wanted to kind of put it in a picture frame, you could just leave it at that and then it would look lovely in a box frame. But I am making it as a Christmas card today, so I'm just going to dust over a piece of crystal white, and then I'm going to take my little sentiment which says Merry Christmas, and this sentiment is from the Making a List and Checking It Twice from the Santa's Workshop collection, but it's a lovely little size and just a lovely little sentiment. So I'm going to use metallic silver sparkle again, sprinkle over the top. And then just beat that up, waiting for that colour to melt and change, and then moving it across the image. Okay, then I'm going to bring in a guillotine, and I'm just going to trim this sentiment down like so. So just do it by eye, not kind of using any measurements, just wherever I think looks about right. Oh, I've smudged the sentiment. That was great. We'll try again. So we'll bring in my crystal white again, stamp out the image, sprinkle over metallic silver sparkle, and hopefully this time I won't smudge it. Oh, there we go. That's fine. Okay, I'll heat that up again. Okay, we'll just give that a few seconds to cool. Right, we'll try again. Again, just trimming it. wherever you think's about the right size. Right, perfect. We haven't smudged it this time. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to edge it with some glitter again. So I'm just dragging towards me with my chisel tip glue pen, and then I'm going to dunk it in to some Crystal Crush, like so. And then we'll bring in our card. And then I'm just going to get some foam pads, and I'm going to add a double layer of foam pads just to the bottom corner, like so. And then I'm going to stick on our Merry Christmas. And that would then be your finished card. I really hope you've enjoyed today's demo. As always, all of the products used today will be listed in the description below. Thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it.